Hey there. All right, we're jumping on. We're waiting for Brandon to get logged in. He's going to jump on here and we're going to chat a little bit about what's going on, weightlifting, some movement training. It's really just kind of a free-for-all chat that we're going to be doing today. Nothing too planned out. If y'all have questions, feel free to drop them into the comments. Put that down in there. There we got Brandon coming in now. Let's get him on here. Here we go.
Chris, what's going on, man?
Hey man, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing okay, even with all the craziness going on, but pretty good today.
Good. Glad to hear.
Yeah, how about you, man?
Yeah, I mean, kind of the same thing. Obviously, the gym's still closed down, so been really trying to up the content online and get better at the online coaching and stuff like that. So there's been some benefits because I've really learned a lot of what I can do online and to expand the coaching online. Something that I wasn't always a big part of what I did, and but I think this has kind of exposed that it needs to be a bigger part of what weightlifting coaches do. So yeah.
Dude, same boat, man. Like, I just watched your video on the muscle up analysis. You guys have to excuse my voice; it's a little raspy today. And also the chin up hold. Like, I was started to watch, it's like, oh yeah, I'm hearing his voice. It's super cool. I love those analysis videos. So good job on the content.
Cool. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm going to try to keep doing that even when things kind of get back to normal. And I
Mm-hmm.
never thought that I really had like the time to do it. And then, and really a lot of it was just like setting up, figuring out how to do it, how I wanted to do it and all that. And so I
Mm-hmm.
just never really had the time to sit down and do that. And I had nothing but time. And now that I've kind of figured out, a basic template and how I'm going to do it, it's starting to figure out that it's not all that time consuming, to sit down and
Mm-hmm.
film something for, 20 minutes and then get it out there. And I mean, I'm not doing anything crazy editing and stuff like that. So, and then the coaches, I make movement analysis super easy and you can post
Mm-hmm.
directly from that. So yeah, now that I got it all figured out, it's definitely something that I'm going to continue even when I get back into the gym and I enjoy doing it. It's another outlet, and people seem to be responding to it. So it's been good.
Yeah. I remember us having this conversation when we first met each other, and we're like, yeah, we're still kind of some half-baked online ideas. Like, we even tried to do a couple projects, but now it's like we're almost kind of backed into the corner, and it's showing us how to be creative
Yeah.
and how much technology has changed since, like, remember when you first had to actually, like, just watch people lifting, and you're like, I got to give you feedback because, but now, like, Dartfish and Coach's Eye, like, you can literally upload and share all this stuff with people, and they can understand what you're talking about instead of saying, I just saw something, and they have to trust you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, I've always utilized Coach's Eye. I've had it for a long time. But when I'm in the gym, it's usually me just watching somebody lift and then giving them feedback and then just kind of
Yeah.
telling them to, what to change. And they're actually very, very responsive to being able to like me physically show them They can
Mm-hmm.
watch themselves do the movement. I can point out where exactly it's wrong. And they're really kind of responding to enjoying being able to look back at it and see themselves doing it and then see what I'm seeing.
Can
You
I
know?
tell you a story about a guy who works in UX design? So he studies how people react to things like the internet and using things on phones. And he came to learn snatch and clean and jerk from me. And he told me about something called procedural memory. And basically, if somebody sees himself doing something, they integrate it more than the coach telling them what to do. If they see a correct version of themselves, they like, oh, I did that. And then they can build on
Mm-hmm.
that success. And then they build up this system, which is like their own style of lifting or moving,
Yeah.
right? And it blew my mind because I was like, I would show videos of me demoing stuff, but then I would be like, he's like, why don't you demo me or show me and then record me and then upload that as my program? And he had so much more adherence. And he was like, I'm more excited to do that than watch a guy who's already good at it. And I was
Yeah.
like, holy crap.
Yeah.
That just blew my noggin, dude.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's so cool. And I mean everything he's saying, I've been able to clearly notice that having to do a lot more of this online training stuff. You know, the athletes are also starting to film themselves more often because that's the only way we're really able to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, a lot of times they're able to go back and look at a video from, you know, a year ago and they're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
things have changed so much.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of them have been able to go back like, you know, I usually do similar movements for about 3 weeks in a row, you know, 3 to 4 weeks in a row, so that I can try to like improve on it before we change the movement up. And they've been able to go back and look at videos. I had an athlete the other day upload on her story week one of the hip snatching, and then me
Mm-hmm.
coaching her through it for 3 weeks, and then week three of hip snatching. And there's like a huge significant difference, even in just like that small time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really cool.
That is super cool. That is actually, now we think about it, that's like awesome marketing material that like I
Yeah.
think coaches who've like, you know, all of us kind of I think we're just so used to the live experience of being with a person, you know, and
Hmm.
I think a lot of us, even the best online coaches, still dug our heels in, and now we're just there's no other way, and we're now forced to be creative, and that is a huge like benefit for you to have that like timeline that you can demonstrate to people who are like, oh, Chris is cool. What is he going to help me with? And
Yeah.
you're like, this exactly. This
Yeah.
is how I
Yeah.
help somebody.
We're making changes and changes quickly, you know? And so, yeah, I think there's still like tons of value of being able to get face to face with athletes, but I think it's also showing a lot of my hesitancies with some of the online coaching
Hmm.
is, you know, they're not that big of a deal. You know, like if the athletes have like accessibility to, you know, proper equipment and they can film themselves and all that, and they're good at communicating,
Hmm.
like, you know, there's some athletes that are doing just as well or even thriving a little bit better doing it this way. And
Hmm.
so it's cool because I think it's something that I'm definitely going to bring back into even when we're in the gym. When I'm seeing these athletes
Hmm.
on a more regular basis, I think we're going to continue to do like maybe Monday video analysis and just everybody sends me a video and we keep doing that because that just gives them another element that they can, because you know how weightlifters are. You know they're going to go home and just watch it over and over and over and over,
Yep.
you know?
And obsess about it.
Yeah, yeah. So they're already doing that. You know, they
Yeah.
already go home and do that. But now to have my corrections and my voice behind them
Hmm.
watching it over and over and over, you know, they're probably not going to obsess about the things I don't want them obsessing about. And
Hmm.
they're going to focus on the things I want them to focus on.
That is so interesting you say that because unless there's like an outside external voice, they're going to just focus on, oh, my knees buckled in,
Yeah.
my hips were too high, my lockout was shit. Instead of like, hey, you did a really good tempo pull. I want you to do that differently a little later. That is a completely different
Yeah.
like stream of consciousness that, I mean, it is this face changing the face of coaching right now, like hybrid, right? Like you
Hmm.
can still do in person, but they can actually re-educate themselves outside of the gym with your input.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's not like the only information they're getting is when we're face to face, and it's just and it's really not. I was always afraid that I was going to be sitting behind my phone
Hmm.
and watching videos 24/7 if I just ran
Yeah.
this online gym. And honestly, what I've been doing is like it takes like maybe an hour a day, and that's not even every day, maybe 2, 3 times a week. And
Hmm.
I can go through them. And what's great about the way that I have to reply to them is I usually have to send it via text or, on Facebook Messenger. And you can't send a video that's longer than like a minute 15.
Yeah.
And so it actually is really quick because it also forces me to consolidate what I'm saying into
Hmm.
the best information. I can show them real quick. It's only about a minute, and then I'm on to the next, and they've got exactly what they need, and then they can focus on that for that entire week of training. And it's really not that time consuming. It's very, very manageable. And for some reason, I thought that I would just be doing video analysis over and over and
Yeah.
over. And now that that's all I'm doing, I've got more free time now than I ever have, even with, replying to text messages, getting on phone calls, sending video analysis and all that. It's consuming a very small amount of time. And
Hmm.
there's no reason why I can't implement that as into, my full-time gym as well when we open back up.
Yeah, I think at our gym too, like we kind of we did Instagram marketing, but it was mostly to funnel people into our live events, like workshops. Like we try to have
Hmm.
like Zygmunt come and use that as kind of like our the marketing point, right?
Yeah.
Come to the gym, experience good equipment. But now I was like, this is time to do hybrid workshops for people who can't
Yeah.
necessarily come to Oakland, but at least give them a way in, like a digital curriculum, and at least maybe they can watch some of the live stream and just be a part of it. And, because this sport will die if we don't have the knowledge being spread around and people getting excited, especially like introverted people.
Hmm.
Um, a guy named Jeremy Fine was saying that people who are introverted do actually better with Zoom coaching because they're more relaxed. They don't have to commute and feel the gym nervousness, and they actually are more adherent to a program. But of
Yeah.
course, there's guys who like we love being at the gym and we love that energy, the push of
Yeah.
other people. But I think that scares a lot of people away from doing weightlifting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's to to be able to really reach out to everybody, you kind of have to factor those things in. Some people
Hmm.
just aren't going to be that comfortable in a large group setting.
Hmm.
And with me, you know, correcting something in front of other people, I mean, we've all seen people who are super uncomfortable with that. I've had the athletes that just go to the corner and try to like hide and lift on their own, you know, and I totally agree. And I've had the people that have been doing, I thought it was a very small amount of people that could do it, but I've had the people that have been doing online training with me for a long period of time, and they do thrive in that. They enjoy just going to their own garage, lifting their
Hmm.
weights, listening to their own music, and then just
Yeah, yeah.
you know, and so some people really do thrive on that. And now though, I think so part of the reason why I'm also trying to really make this shift is now that all this happened, I mean, the number of at-home gyms have significantly increased.
Hmm.
There's tons of garage gyms popping up, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a percentage of people, even if it's just a handful of my clients, that decide I actually really enjoy just lifting at my house. And they
Hmm.
might just make that decision to shift to online training because now they have it at home. They figured out that they can do the discipline of it. And so I wouldn't be surprised if when I open the gym back up, that some people decide that they're still going to split their time or do a lot of time in their own garage now.
Yeah. So I was kind of curious because like we're kind of on the edge, right? Like what are some things that are working for hybrid? Because I'm still trying to figure that out and I'm kind of curious.
Oh man, I don't know. I'm still on that edge too. Uh, you know, trying to figure out that good balance. the things that I know that I am going to implement back in, that I figured out that I can do a better job of, um, is for sure going to be the video analysis, and just keep
Mm-hmm.
that going. I mean, that's been huge and people love it. And now they have something more permanent that they can continue. You can forget a cue really, really quickly, but if you
Mm-hmm.
have it in your phone, you can go back. And then I'm putting, more content on YouTube now
I
because,
saw that you have some tutorials.
yeah, because that's also a permanent source.
Yeah.
So if somebody can't join, even if we're doing like you were saying, if you decided to do a live event at your gym and people aren't available on that Saturday during those hours, but now
Mm-hmm.
you're filming it and you're putting the content back out there, people can go back and watch it somewhere else. Now if you want to sell that, that's you got other options for that too. But to try to make some material that I do more permanent. I'm starting to organize all my old cycles and put those up on my website where people can just buy them. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, so trying to get more content out there, I think is going to be a big one for me. And then something else I've really enjoyed is I'm I used to be just like I'll wait till the athletes come in and I'll talk to them then, but not a lot of people are really good at talking face to face. You know?
I know, right? About difficult things too.
Yeah, and so there's some people that have been communicating even better via text than when
Mm.
I talked to them at the gym.
Mm-hmm.
At the gym, sometimes it's like, no, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm good. No worries.
Yeah.
But then I shoot them a text and they're like, oh, I've only been able to get 2 days in. I was really stressed at work. And they unload this whole list of things that,
Mm.
I never really knew about. And so, what I've been doing every Monday and Wednesday is I just go through all my athletes, and if I haven't talked to them within 24 hours, I just shoot them a text. Hey, how are things going? How are you feeling? How's training going?
Mm.
And it takes me, you know, 15 minutes to even send all those out. Now it takes a little longer to reply because people start replying at different times throughout the day, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not that big a deal. But it takes me 15 minutes because I can literally just write something really quick, send it, write something. And I have just a checklist on my phone. All right, message this person, talk to this person yesterday. And so I think just doing regular, check-ins on the phone and through text and messenger, I think that's something that I'll also continue to do because some people just communicate better that way.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like now that you're saying that, I think when I've reached out to people on Instagram or texted them outside the gym, they'll actually tell me what's going on. Like my job's really stressing me. I can only make it in one day, and I failed on the program. I'm like, no, you didn't fail on the program. But when they come in the gym, they're like, oh, I'm good. I'm not hurting. I'm gonna do
Yeah,
all of my makeup homework. I'm gonna do 3 days of programming in one day, and I'm like,
yeah,
no,
exactly.
no, that's not a good idea.
Or they're going to
Then
come
you'll
in with the idea that they're going to do 3 days of programming in one day, but also not tell you about it.
Yeah, they're
you
like, "Oh,
know?
what are you doing?" They're like, "I'm making up for
Yeah,
the other
yeah,
two
exactly.
days." I'm like, "No,
Yeah,
that's a 2 hour workout, dude. Like, you gotta stop."
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's been cool. It's been cool. I've enjoyed this. I was so scared going into this, so scared,
Me too.
and I'm not necessarily out of fear when things get back rolling because it's going to be a slow process and people still might trickle away from the gym, but it sparked some new things in me in what I can do as a coach that has
hmm
at least gotten me a little bit excited about, the future. I'm like, I think there's some things that even if I take a hit right now, there's some things that I think can really come from all this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the same page with you. Like, what do you see now that like is possible? Where before we were kind of scared. Like, what's possible for you now?
Online training, man.
Mm.
I was like, I wouldn't try to, and I haven't figured out a good way of doing it yet. But I was always under the idea that I will not train beginners online. you know, and I was
Sure,
pretty,
totally. Yeah,
I
yeah.
was pretty set on that. I was pretty set on that, but I now think that there's a way to do it. I don't know
Mm.
exactly the way. I don't, and and so what happened, this is kind of going off a little bit, is I opened up another program in a nearby town, but it's a program where I'm not there at all. I just send
Hmm.
coaches to it, and and it's a combination program with a CrossFit program that this facility had. And so it's teaching a lot of just CrossFitters weightlifting. There are some people that are doing full time weightlifting, but most of it is CrossFitters learning how to weightlift. So a lot of beginners.
Mm.
And I'm used to just teaching people and beginners off the top of my head the way that I like it because everybody moves differently. So I'm like, okay, you're going to start here, or I'm going to have somebody else start here. And so
Hmm.
I usually kind of like free flow that and didn't have like a real organized thing. But once I had coaches and I'm like, all right, we need a way of teaching these people,
Hmm.
I designed basically like progressions to learning the snatch. And but then I also found out, I was like, well, I could also use these progressions for, you know, like our TCU club when they don't have a coach. I'm like,
Hmm.
here's what this movement looks like. Start with, you know, muscle snatching from the hip position. And
Hmm.
then once you can do that and show me that you can do that in a video, then we're going to move you to the next step. Now we're going to practice an overhead squat. All right, now that you
Yeah,
show me that you
exactly.
can do an overhead squat, now let's see you do the muscle snatch and then shift and do the overhead squat. And so I feel
Yes.
like, and then I can have them just work that one thing, and then we can make it into a program by doing other elements. So you could still be squatting, working on pulls, and you know you could still be doing other stuff. But I do now feel like there's a way online to also teach somebody from scratch, and I think it's going to be something like that, and learning how to organize and do that.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Like, because if they just get good at the one foundational thing, like being able to pull upward rather than swing the bar,
Hmm.
if they just get that one thing down and they can enjoy the CrossFit way more with less energy expenditure and get see their Olympic lifts raised. Like,
Yeah,
I think there used to be this dichotomy, like you got to choose weightlifting or you got to choose CrossFit, and a lot of people, because the coaches in weightlifting didn't know how to deal with all these different varying levels, right? It's
yeah,
just a headache. But now
yeah,
they're like, okay, if you can prove level one, then you can graduate at whatever rate, and I will see with my eyes you graduated or you stay here.
yeah,
And now you
exactly.
can do that feedback, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that's one thing that I think can be like the future where I just wouldn't do it. I'd be like, you know, you have to come in. So even all of my online coaching, I have a few that are the outcast, but it's because they had experience already. So I would take on
Mm,
people that were already pretty good lifters, and I would just have to give like, you know, some feedback here and there. But for the most part, as long as they're getting programming and they're able to train, like they can kind of like coach themselves to some extent. And
mm-hmm.
then, you know, I would just primarily be there to coach them through weightlifting meets and give them programming. And so a majority of my online coaching is all in like within a 45-minute radius because I kind of
Nice.
required them to have to come in every now
Oh
and
yeah,
then.
like to Endurolab, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But now I'm thinking that I can expand that. You know, I think
Mm-hmm.
that I don't need them to have to come in and me get eyes on and, you know, and physically work with them where that was my feedback for a long time. All right, you come in once or twice a month. I'm going to give you feedback and then you go work on it, then come back in. And that was the way I did my online training. But now I do think that there's ways to do that and not have them physically come in regularly. So I think there's opportunity to expand outside of like, you know, my Dallas Fort Worth radius that I've kind of stuck myself in.
Gotta get Chris Laughlin in Europe and like South Africa, man.
There you go.
Gotta,
There you go.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I know like you just opened your second location, like right when all this stuff kind of happened.
Yeah, man. Terrible. Terrible.
I was like, dude, that's so cool. And it looked like it was more um, like you would expand to people who weren't exactly into weightlifting, and you're bringing weightlifting to them. And I was like, dude,
Yeah.
that's awesome, you know?
Yeah, it was a big rec center. So and they had started up a CrossFit program, and their
Hmm.
CrossFit program did really well. I mean, the place had only been open for a few months, and they had like, maybe 50, 60 CrossFitters, which is, amazing.
Whoa.
It's because of the facility. The facility is ridiculous.
Is it
It's
great? Is it awesome?
it's literally called the Epic.
Oh
And
man.
but so it was, and it's a big city ran thing. So,
Mm.
the pricing is a pretty low pricing, and so they get a lot of people in there. So it's also been cool because we've been able to do almost a more affordable program for people as well. And
Hmm.
so that's been fun on top of that. But so they opened up this CrossFit program, and they had interest in weightlifting. And
Hmm.
so I came in there, set up a few platforms, and we send coaches over there. But it became kind of that hybrid. So most of the people that were training there are they're CrossFitters, but then they jump over and work with our coaches 1 or 2 times a week to better
Hmm.
their weightlifting. And that's been a great, kind of that hybrid program of they can still do their CrossFit because they really enjoy that, but they also want to get better at the weightlifting movements. And I think the biggest hang up in CrossFit is most of them are all class based.
Hmm.
So you only have a small window of like being able to do like skill work or strength work. So if you're trying to do warm up plus, a strength exercise plus conditioning plus a cool down all within 1 hour, I mean, you just can't really teach somebody a weightlifting movement when you only have like 15 minutes to do it.
Yeah, and not a
So
consistent practice either. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and then on top of that, if it's that they're only doing those 15 minutes, once every 10 days, 2 weeks or something like that, then it's just not going to get better. And so it's been kind of cool to see how willing people were to just spend an hour just coming over and working on their Olympic lifts. So that way when they have those 15 minutes in their CrossFit class, they can better utilize it. It's a worthwhile 15 minutes. You know?
You know what? You know what? Be interesting. What you're saying, like if say like weightlifting and CrossFit coaches have like a good relationship, and maybe like the online content could be like the homework in like a resource. Like, hey, if you're a CrossFitter, check this resource so that if you are going to
Mm,
practice this stuff, you at least know like some steps,
I like
right?
that.
That
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean? Because then you don't have to teach it over and over, and they can at least do some homework until the next time they come and see
Yeah,
you.
kind of like the same thing we were saying. Yeah, so even if it's like a very short period of time that you're able to work with the coach, if there's the content of saying, hey, you really need to work on this, here's
Hmm.
what it looks like, and
Hmm.
then they can follow that and practice it. Yeah, absolutely. I don't have a real big connection in the CrossFit community anymore.
Hmm.
So I don't really know exactly what that relationship looks like nowadays. Do y'all do anything like that over at y'all's place?
Well, we technically are a CrossFit affiliate, and
Really?
we're largest square foot in the East Bay. But we have like we all came from CrossFit, so we have that
Mm,
connection, and we still know the head coaches and the owners. But even then, like it's still hard to pull them to our facility.
yeah.
Uh, and before all this happened, we actually wanted to go to each gym and try to work something out where either they came in like for some kind of monthly clinics, or we went and did something and helped their coaches. But one gym, we have a coach that coaches at our gym, and they coach at a CrossFit too. They were just bringing their knowledge to the CrossFit, and they
That's
were
cool.
kind of
Yeah.
hosting the kids program, but also the adults would kind of like listen in and be like, "Oh, what are they doing?" You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
building that bridge, yeah.
I mean, that's always a tough thing because, most gyms are probably also very protective of their clients, very
Hmm.
protective of their athletes. And I think everybody's also seen the CrossFitter that goes full-time weightlifting because, I do think that weightlifting is an easier sport to compete in. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you have a competitive drive, I mean, you can start competing in weightlifting right away. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's also very easy now. I was talking to Tom Sroka yesterday
Yeah. So.
about how much we enjoy the AO series. And so now there's like this you got like your local meets, and then
Mm-hmm.
like us, we kind of have the state meet that's a little bit above that, and then you've got these AO series, and then you've got your finals, your nationals, and so on. And so I think it's a very when somebody comes in and you're like, this is what you need to be able to do to compete locally. You need to be able to do a decent snatch and clean and jerk, and we can throw you into a local meet. And then here are the numbers that you would need to be able to go and do an AO series. And they look at it and they're like, oh, I could probably do that in a year or two. They're like, okay, that's probably worth it. And then they get to that point and they're like, well, I'm progressing pretty well. I could start seeing myself move up. So I think weightlifting is very an easy draw for somebody who has that
Mm-hmm.
competitive mindset because the numbers are set. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is the number you have to hit. You know, in CrossFit, you don't ever know what you're going to
No, it's a crapshoot.
do.
Literally, they
you
don't
know?
tell you till they announce it.
Yeah. So you don't know if you're going to go to a competition and these workouts are good for you or bad for you. You don't know how
Mm-hmm.
competitive you're going to be. There's nothing that's really like, it's very hard to measure it, where in weightlifting, it's super measurable. This week, I did, 1 kilo heavier than last week.
Mm-hmm.
I can see myself moving up, and here are the numbers I need to hit to be competitive. It's very easy to read that. Where in CrossFit, I think it's very difficult. So I would assume that CrossFitters and CrossFit coaches would have a hard time just like releasing their athletes to this very inviting sport, you know?
So the way it works at our gym, like we train the kids from this CrossFit, and they kind of accept that we are going to take care of their weightlifting stuff.
That's
And
cool.
the parents are really supportive. Like one of the parents is the CrossFit owner, and I think it does come to the relationship. Like they know we're not going to like poach
Yeah,
people. It really is them. Like I mean, it is relationship management. They really took a while to like step foot, and now there's like a kids program, but yeah, that fear is definitely alleviated of like poaching or like, am I
that's
going to lose
cool.
people to this? Um, and people who've picked CrossFit, they're like, I love the weightlifting, but I've got my CrossFit. And then people are like,
Yeah,
yeah, I kind of like weightlifting. They're like, awesome, do that switch. And
yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool that y'all have that relationship with other gyms. Um I haven't really found that same kind of openness in our area.
mm,
But also a lot of our CrossFit gyms in our area try to or do run barbell clubs or weightlifting clubs within their club. So I think that's, they're less likely to outsource that because I think they're also trying to do it on their own.
mm-hmm,
But to be quite honest, I haven't really even considered doing, just an outside program at another gym and just seeing if they would be interested in doing something like that. Um, I haven't really considered it for a long time because primarily I was the only coach and the main coach, and I was like, regardless, I'm not going to go out and do anything. Even when I
yeah,
opened up my new club or a second location, um, I wasn't going to ever open up a second location unless I didn't have to be there. So I finally
mm-hmm,
got to the point where I had enough coaches and coaches willing to go there and do that program. And so, but I like that idea now that I have some people that, I trust to run the programs the way I want to and coach the way I've coached. And all my coaches are my athletes that have turned into coaches, which I've just loved because, we're always on the same page, you
mm-hmm,
know,
yeah,
because we've been with each other for years now. And, but I think now that I have that, I think that's a really good idea is to start reaching out to these other people and say, hey, what do you think about, even if it's not have y'all come over to our place, what do you think about us coming in, me sending a coach over there 2 times a week and doing an hour long class on snatch and clean and jerk and just kind of see how that hits. And, you know, I think that's a really cool thing. And that would be a great way to start building these relationships,
Hmm.
which I think would transfer over well for us because that probably means more people showing up for our weightlifting meets too.
I mean, if we're talking about saving the sport of weightlifting, like they made that big move. Like I heard, like they're doing online meets. Like one of the people in
Yeah.
my classes was like, I just competed my first weightlifting meet
Yeah.
online. I was like, whoa. I mean, I never thought that jump would ever happen. But
No.
that just invites, like from their own garage. I mean, it takes away the performance aspect, which I love. You
Yeah.
probably love too. But just being part of something, and that was a big move, I think, on USA Weightlifting's part. That to really
Yeah.
just make a move.
I think it's, I think it's cool. I like the idea. There are a couple things that, you know, and this isn't like I'm talking bad about it. I totally understand it
Sure.
from
Yeah.
the USAW standpoint, and you know I totally support what they're doing. But as a club that hosts level one
Yeah.
certifications and weightlifting meets, it does take away a little bit of our income. Um, but I also totally understand where they're coming from. But I was scheduled to host a level one certification in March or April,
Hmm.
and at our new facility. And I had, you know, about five of my athletes were going to get certified, and we had some other people coming in all the above. And then we had to cancel it. And then they came out with the online certification, and they went in and did
Oh
it.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
not that
Yeah.
that's that big. I mean, again, I totally understand, and I'm not complaining. Like I wouldn't say don't do that,
Hmm.
but you know it does take a little bit of something away from the clubs as well. And I think there's a big difference in doing an online competition and then a even a local meet, because you still have to, you know, you still have to go through the process of the warming up in a warm up hall
Hmm.
and timing that and understanding
Hmm.
what that's like. And there's a huge different element to it than just the online competition. But what I do think that this opens up is I'm hoping this doesn't open up to where they just do like, you know, a few online competitions a year. I don't want to see that happen
Hmm.
because, again, I think that that takes away from our ability to host things where people need to qualify for. I mean,
Yeah.
we host a meet on the last weekend before nationals every year, or the qualification period finishes before nationals every year, because that's a big draw for us. People, this is the
Hmm.
last weekend you can qualify for nationals, and that's one of our biggest meets. And so I don't want to see that go online and then that go away from us. But what I do want to see is that people who don't have the accessibility to a weightlifting meet have other options to qualify for things. And I think that
Hmm.
that's what they're opening up a door for now, is that if you're deployed or if, you know, if whatever circumstances there are and you actually can't do a local meet, that you can now qualify for a national meet with some other means. And I think that that is something that could be really beneficial and cool.
Yeah, it's strange times, man. I never thought like, well, one, the world. I mean, I always thought weightlifting would just kind of continue on the way
Yeah.
that it did, and you just like my whole past couple of years has been trying to figure out how to explain the intimidation factor to people. Like,
Mm.
there are many fears other than just getting crushed by the weight. There's the social pressure, like there's the literal I don't know who all these people are pressure. Like there's these psychological things that make it such a good character development tool. Like it just helps you deal with so many things that makes everything else in life a lot simpler and easy,
Mm.
other than just lifting, right? And when that is not really the case right now, like you can do everything online, I think it also drops the kind of like the respect points that you get for really
Yeah.
showing up.
Yeah.
Like I just respect people who go out and they do the thing in front of
Yeah, man.
strangers with
Yeah.
poise. I'm like, that's the person to look up to.
Absolutely. I don't care. I don't care what you say. If local meets, national meet, what it is, to sit there and have to perform and you be the only person on that platform, and then to have people that are there to judge you.
Hmm.
I mean, that you learn a lot from doing that. And there's such huge benefits to putting yourself in these uncomfortable situations. And I
Hmm.
don't want to see that leave. And
Me
I
too.
honestly don't believe that. I, I mean, I can't imagine that somebody who does everything online and then shows up for a national meet. I can't. I don't see that going well. You know, there's already such a huge leap from when people compete like at a local meet
Hmm.
to like the first time I take them to like an AO series. I
Yeah.
mean, there's already such a huge jump. I can't imagine going from everything's been in my garage to now I'm on, this platform and competing in front of, hundreds of people. And, I think that there's a need for that in-person lifting, that in-person competition and stuff like that. So, but I really like what you were just talking about on highlighting the personal benefits and the growth that just a person can have from weightlifting. And I've never even really thought about, I've had people come to me and talk to me and tell me about that, but I've never really even thought about using that as also a way to explain weightlifting. I would love to hear like kind of what you've experienced with that and, your approach on that, because that's a really cool take on it. Mine's always just been like, we're playing a sport, you know? I'm
Well,
like, if you like competing, you like playing a sport, and it covers all the aspects of fitness that we're going to need. It's like, so you can exercise, you can do all these other things. So that's always been like my selling point is you can it's something that you can do forever. If
hmm
you can get into the
yes.
gym, if you can get into the gym 5 hours a week, that's enough to, to be able to play this sport, compete,
Hmm.
and get better, stronger, all the above. That's always kind of been my selling point. But I would love to hear a little bit more about, maybe the conversations you have or things that you talk about as far as like the growth of a person in using weightlifting for that.
Well, that kind of came on accident because I learned all this as an adult, and I didn't have positive sport experiences when I was younger.
Mm,
I was really sport averse until I had a good experience with my CrossFit coach who brought me to my first weightlifting meet, and I had to deal with all of these psychological issues firsthand. And then as the years went by, I would see it when I train people. I'm like, oh, they're actually scared of looking dumb in front of people. That they're not actually scared of the weight. They're just scared of looking silly,
yeah.
or they're afraid of the public speaking aspect, and that's why they're actually trying to do weightlifting because it doubles down on the public speaking and
Hmm.
doing something physical and walking people through that. Like I haven't taken anyone to national meets, which is one reason I'd love to like shadow you one day. All the other coaches at my gym have more national experience, but look, like from CrossFitter to local meet, that's sort of like my wheelhouse now of people who are like, I'm so scared.
Yeah.
And now I just competed, and I'm like, that has to be something that people had never imagined before. And I have to name it. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I know I kind of started writing this article, like give your fear a name. And I tried to name all the things that are kind of scary for people, just so they know they're not alone or crazy.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. Have you put that article out yet, or are you putting it together?
I am putting it together because, honestly, I didn't think it would be interesting to anyone until you had said something, but um, I'll send you a draft so you can see it and just kind of like give me some notes or something.
Yeah, no, I would love to take a look at that. And yeah, once you put it out there, I'd love to share it too, because um, there have been there's been those situations where I was completely oblivious to it because I was just, coaching the athletes and doing my thing
Hmm.
and hey, great work, we got through the day and all the above. And then I see them post something online and they go into some of that stuff, a year back, I never thought that I would be comfortable enough to go out onto a competition platform and do this. And I was a shy person in the corner. Now I feel more comfortable. And they start talking about those things. And, and then I'm like, oh, wow, this meant a lot more to them than, what my experience was with them. Their experience was completely different. And so I think it's something that people would really relate with, especially for athletes. So yeah, I would love for you to put that together and get it out there because I would like to share that, and I think there's some people that could really relate to it because it's an area that that's not my mind doesn't always go there, and that's
It's
not
like,
where.
well, as the coach too, you're responsible for so many people, just keeping them moving, right?
Yeah,
Just moving forward, and it's hard to stop and check in with each person. But the way you're talking about coaching them now, you're going to get a glimpse into like their mental kind of process. Like, oh,
yeah,
I don't know if I can do this PR, coach. Like, you got me set for Friday to max out, and I'm just wigging out. I can't sleep. And you're like, well, yeah, I totally get that. Like, not everyone's gonna like actually PR. That's not the point. It's to just keep moving forward.
yeah.
And for a long time, I didn't have anyone saying like it's not about crushing the weights. It's just about not quitting. It's just about not
Mhm.
hurting yourself for this short period of time until competition. Just don't hurt yourself.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool, and I hope it's something that you include into that article because one of the hard things for athletes, and one of the that I have to sit down and talk with them on a regular basis, is when they're not seeing that progress in the weights, and so then they get to a point where they think it's pointless. Like, what's the point of me
Hmm.
doing this? What's the point of me continuing to train if I'm not getting any better or if my numbers aren't going up? Because I've had people, it's 2 year plateaus, and and that stuff just happens. I mean, if you're in any sport long enough, I mean that's just part of it. But if you've got some information in there and that I can show people that, look, I know it's tough as far as your performance goes, but look at all of these other goals you can set. Look at all these other benefits that you're getting to still coming into the gym on a regular basis and grinding through this stuff and sticking with it and still going out on the competition platforms. You're still getting better at XYZ, so we can show that there's other goals in there outside of
Hmm.
just the numbers, so that maybe that can shift their mindset for temporarily, you know?
Yeah, and you know what I think too, like because there's so few weightlifters that we know to storytell, like when I did my internship with Bob Takano, he was saying he does very little coaching as his senior lifters do a lot of the culturing of the newbies. Like they tell them stories about because he's like they're gonna treat me like a parent. They're not gonna listen to my advice until they
Mm,
really need it. It's the older guys who've been in the gym telling them stories about their first meet, their first national meet, their hangups with stuff, and like how to get through that. And
yeah,
and I was like, I thought I was here to be in charge, like be the coach. And he's like, no, that's not coaching, man. You're just the
that's cool.
placeholder.
I like that. That gives me more ideas on, I think, important content. And it might be as simple as going in there and getting um, experiences from other athletes. My athletes that have been in the sport for 5 years, for them to sit back
Hmm.
and be like, yeah, I haven't touched that weight in the last 3 years, you know,
Hmm.
but this is why I'm still doing it. This is why, XYZ. And I think going in there and that's a really cool approach. That might be another way for me to continue to find content is start doing these contacting other athletes and just hearing what their stories are because I I know, you and me know this because we're on the coaching side of things and we see multiple athletes and we see common trends with multiple athletes. So if you've been working with, hundreds and hundreds of athletes, you know that there's a trend of, okay, at some point you're probably going to get hurt. Like it's just going to
Mm-hmm.
happen, you know?
Yeah.
And honestly, if you do this long enough, you're probably going to get hurt again and
Yeah.
those kind of things, you know?
Yeah.
And we know that there's going to be plateaus. We know that like we know these things, but a lot of times athletes when they're new to this or they've gone 2 years straight of not being hurt and not having these plateaus and all of a sudden this is happening, they're like, am I even doing the right thing? Am I,
Mm-hmm.
why is this happening to me? Or there might even be questioning, should I be changing programs? Should I be work
Yeah.
changing gym? You start getting into all of these, they start thinking about all this. But if you go and you talk to any veteran weightlifter, their story is going to be exactly the same or probably even worse to some extent, you know? Because what we
Yep.
usually see in weightlifters is we usually don't see the struggles, not a whole lot. I mean, every now and then they might post that, but those are definitely more rare than
Oh
the
yeah.
the the highlights because people want to promote their highlights and I totally get it. But when you go and you look at, an athlete, you're like, wow, this person's been competing at a high level for the last 10 years and I don't even ever remember seeing them like injured or anything like that. And
Mm-hmm.
but then you go and you talk to the athlete and they're like, yeah, for an entire year, I couldn't put my arm overhead, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, I never even knew this. And so I think that's something that can maybe ease some minds with athletes when they're going through these things. If there is that content about out there of being like, how this athlete, got back to getting into competitions, how this athlete got back onto the podium, how to hear actually the the struggles and
Mm-hmm.
then the ability to come back up out of that, I think is something that athletes need to hear to be able to ease their minds.
Totally. You need a story to hang something like when you
Yeah,
just know that someone better than you went through something similar, you're willing to stick it out,
yeah,
you know? Like the other day, Sean Waxman posted a video of him training in with Bob Decano, old school, like video cassette video of
that's
him doing a
awesome.
bunch of misses. And I was like, fuck, that's really cool to see it because, I respect
Yeah,
him as a professional. And then to see him miss and just show, I was like, damn, that really makes me feel more respect for him as someone who gets the journey. Training in a high school, the
yeah,
definition of weightlifting and then going and doing his own thing. I mean, that just makes the story more relatable, you know?
for sure. Yeah, I always love hearing those. I really enjoy hearing the old stories of coaches and their experience with weightlifting, because a lot of us are, on the back end of it now.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think so it's always cool to hear that because you get to hear the whole lifetime, the whole span, and then you get to hear like, yeah, these are the things I really did wrong, and these are the things that really went well. But I think there's sometimes like the issue with athletes that coaches might not be 100% relatable, you know. And so
Yeah.
if you're like, here was my experience as an athlete, and now I'm your coach, I don't think that's as relatable as going to another athlete that's currently in it and them saying, yeah, here's what I'm going through. Here are the things I've been through, or I'm been in a rut for a while now, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little bit more relatable to also have that athlete to athlete interaction. And that's really cool that Bob Decano was able to latch onto that early on and know how important that was for the athletes to have that communication as opposed to him being the one that is the sole communicator to all the athletes. He's willing to step back because he knows that that's more relatable than him just coming at them with his story.
I think because he was a high school teacher too, so he could see through the thousands of students. Like it's like they're not going to listen to me. How
Yeah,
do they listen? Like one of the other lessons that he lifted when there was 3 lifts, and I
yeah,
totally forgot he was a lifter. I was just like, does this guy lift? And I was like, oh yeah, it was so far back when. And I remember him writing an article about when the press got dropped and how that shifted weightlifting forever. And there's people who didn't even know that the press existed. And, you know,
Yeah.
he's like the last, like with Jim Schmitz and him, like John Coffey, like the last of the Mohicans, you know, where you had to
Hmm.
sit with them and just hang out with them for a long time to get any of their wisdom.
Yeah.
You know, but now it's like you can just click a button, like go to your YouTube, and you can unlock the secret of why your snatch sucks instead of, you know, snatching badly for 2 years, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it's really cool, and this whole experience was really eye opening for exactly that reason, because I think I hovered in the middle somewhere there. You know,
Mm,
when I got into weightlifting and when I, you know, and I do have a background of sports and coaching. I coached gymnastics for many years prior to all that. We didn't have those resources, and those resources weren't really, they were they were few to none, you know.
mm-hmm.
So when I was trying to find information on weightlifting and learn more, it was usually through books, pictures of positions, you
Yeah,
know, those types of
pictures.
things. You know, yeah, I know. People are like, "What the fuck?" Um, uh, you know, so and then the videos that were out there were also there were very few. So when YouTube started getting popular, you know, that's obviously was the big boom of Cal Strength, because they
Hmm.
were one of the first ones to actually start putting their lifts and training sessions online, and that was huge
Yeah.
because now we actually got some video and we could watch people lift on a regular basis, and we could see this change in athletes. And so that was,
Hmm.
I think, you know, kind of the spark of it. And then once people started realizing that, yeah, this learning and being able to find this information online is it accelerates things so quickly. I mean, I can't tell you how many for how long things that we taught in weightlifting early on. Now I'm like, well, that was completely wrong,
I
because
remember, yeah.
the only information we had was one other coach maybe coaching us or telling
Yep.
us. And so then all we did was just regurgitate the information that we got from that coach. And then later we find out, well, that's not how the rest of the world's doing it.
Man, I mean, I had to reboot my technique probably like 3 or 4 times after, like, was a triple extension, was a catapult. I mean, my
Oh yeah.
first like level one was with Glenn Penley. So I learned how to catapult lift when he worked with Don McCauley. And it worked for a while, but I could not squat clean because I could only
Yeah.
hip check it. And I got stuck at 105 kilos. And people are like, how the fuck are you power cleaning 105, but you can't squat clean it? And I was like, what's a squat clean?
Yeah.
And they're like, are you fucking kidding me? And I was like, oh no, I'm gonna quit. I can't take this. Like, I just spent the last 2 years developing this lift, and then people are telling me I'm doing it wrong. And
Yeah.
I tell people now that story, and they're like, that's not true. I'm like, you didn't see the 4 years of me like reading books and thinking like, is that what I'm doing? Am I doing this
Oh
right?
yeah.
You know, like,
Oh yeah. I mean, I wish I would have had I mean, I've got some old video, but not old enough. Like, I've got old video where my lifting is pretty bad, but but before that, like we weren't videoing our lifts.
yeah,
So
you just lifted.
yeah, you just lifted. And even then, when we were videoing our lifts, it was like some shitty pixel video, you know? So,
Yeah, flip phone.
so, so yeah, so a lot of people, even if they kind of look back, even at some of my older videos that are still pretty horrendous, like they
Hmm.
were like, well, you were never like a bad lifter. And I'm like, no, no, no. You didn't see the process. You don't really
Yeah.
know where this started. And
Hey, I think we're gonna get kicked off in a minute from Instagram Live. Do you want to do a couple minutes after, or you got to go?
I do have to go. I've got an
Okay,
appointment I
we
got to
should
get
wrap.
to. But yeah, man, let's do this again. I like being able to jump